These preschool sweethearts lost touch. Years later, the unthinkable happened. So many people have high school sweethearts, but how many people have been part of a love story dating back to preschool? After two kids were forced to part ways after being best of friends, something remarkable happened years later. It's been nearly 3 decades since Matt Grodzki and Laura Scheel used to hang out together. The dynamic duo hit it off at a Phoenix, Arizona preschool. However, they could never foresee the incredible journey they would embark on together. It's been so long since Matt Grodzki first met Laura Scheel, and quite frankly, he doesn't remember how it all went down. "She was always a girl who let me follow her around," he said. "I'd always try to impress her by reciting lines from movies like The Lion King and stuff like that." Nevertheless, he clearly remembered that they struck a bond quickly. Their parents also saw clearly that Matt and Laura were very close friends. To say that Matt and Laura were attached at the hip is an understatement of the century. Often taking turns to host each other at their homes, they loved nothing more than playing hide and seek and going to the movies together. Laura was a huge inspiration to Matt during their formative years, teaching him how to draw, and the duo loved staying up late, talking about all of their deepest passions. In fact, Matt loved Laura so much that he wasn't afraid to hide it. After his parents had brought him up to speak his mind and be open about his feelings, Matt took this advice and applied it at school one day. So excited about his friendship with Laura, he gathered his friends around him one day at preschool and told them that when he was older he would marry her. Expecting one reaction from his friends, Matt was surprised to see how his friends would end up reacting. Much to Matt's surprise, the friends simply laughed at him for his vulnerable moment of honesty. With the faintest idea of what it meant to marry somebody, his 3- to 4-year-old friends were completely baffled by the statement. That's not all, though. Matt's teachers, who also heard his brave words, couldn't help but chuckle just a bit. Rather than feeling embarrassed, Matt was determined to make his dream come true. However, life would get in the way of his plans. One fateful day soon arrived that would have a huge effect on Matt and Laura's friendship. As he was starting kindergarten, Matt hadn't foreseen that he would have to part ways with Laura. While they wouldn't be able to see each other as much as they used to, the duo maintained hope that they would still be able to stay friends. However, distance drove them apart, and soon enough the pair completely lost touch with one another. One day, Matt and Laura even stopped thinking about each other. High school brought with it a number of new challenges and opportunities for young Laura Scheel. As a result, she tended to think less and less of her old friend Matt Grodzki. However, one day while scrolling through a close friend's contact list, a name jumped out at her. It was Matt Grodzki. Her friend explained that the two had attended middle school together. The thought of her old friend made her reminisce, but when her friend offered to set them up, Laura declined. Laura explained the story about Matt's crush on her while they were in kindergarten. The story sounded really cute to Laura's friend, who urged her to reach out to Matt. However, Laura thought it would be silly and decided to leave it at that. Being a true romantic, though, her friend was not satisfied with that response and decided to play the role of Cupid by forwarding her number to Matt anyway, without her knowledge. Soon after her friend sent Laura's number to Matt, he reached out to her. Laura jumped when she received a message from an unknown number, but Matt quickly identified himself. As the two slowly reconnected over the phone, Laura told her friend that she was still nervous about the idea of going on a date with him. However, after much coercion from both Matt and her friend, she agreed to go out with him. The two had agreed to meet up at a football game that was happening at Matt's high school that weekend along with their mutual friend. The cool night air helped to keep Matt from sweating, and he admits his stomach was in knots before the meeting. It had been over a decade since the two had last set eyes on one another, let alone spoken to each other. Later on, Laura would admit that she was just as nervous. Despite the tension and nerves that the two had before meeting up with one another, they both admit that the first date was like something out of a dream. The years between them had no effect on their feelings. In little over 2 weeks, the two agreed to call it official and were more than comfortable calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend. The only problem was that they were still both high school freshmen. The two attended different high schools, but still made sure they were in each other's social lives. All in all, they attended 15 dances at their respective schools together. Neither of them ever accepted an invitation to go to a dance with another student, such that everyone at their schools knew that they were taken. Between them, they wore 15 different matching suits and dresses, dancing 15 different slow dances in all. At such a young age, that's quite a commitment to another person. The two were passing through high school when they came up against a big bump in the road: college. Some people decide to go to school near the people they love, while others decide on going somewhere further away. Grodzki and Scheel were faced with a choice. If they put their education first, they were aware of the challenge this would pose for their relationship. After each of them weighed their options, they decided to go to schools that were in separate states. They attended separate high schools, but these were relatively close to each other. When it came to college, Sheil decided to go to Northern Arizona University and Grodsky to Columbia College in Chicago. Separated by 1,600 miles, they were unsure if they could make it work. They would no longer be able to see each other after school and on weekends. Right after we graduated from high school, we were pretty hesitant. We were like, do we stay together? Do we try to make it work? Every relationship takes work, but long-distance ones take a concerted effort for each person to remain committed to the other and the relationship. Grodsky and Sheil's love had survived the obstacle of dating well in different high schools, so they figured they'd be able to handle 1,600 miles. They set off for their respective schools, which would be a litmus test for their relationship. If they stayed together, it meant they were meant to be. If not, maybe Grodsky's preschool classmates were right to laugh. Things were hard for them the first year. Each one's life had drastically changed, and with this change came new friends and different schedules. Even communicating to say hello became a challenge, not to mention the hardship of not seeing each other. They went 20 weeks without seeing one another, which, needless to say, made things extra difficult for the couple. How does one make a long-distance relationship work? They were determined to find a way to roll with the punches and have their relationship survive. Matt and Laura were not able to partake in activities like most other couples, such as going out to dinner and snuggling up on the sofa. While many of Laura's college friends would Netflix and chill with their partners, Laura and Matt had to make some adaptations. Instead, they would watch back-to-back episodes of Friends while on the phone to each other. Long-distance relationships can be hard, but Sheil says you just have to push through it and know the end goal. All of a sudden, Grodsky made a dramatic decision that would change both of the students' lives. The long-distance relationship seemed to be on a good track and things were going well. However, something happened which triggered Matt to graduate early from college. In May of 2015, just as the pair were about to start their senior year, Grodsky moved to Arizona to be close to his girlfriend. But what could possibly be so urgent? What was he planning? Grodsky's plan was in the making. He decided he was going to propose to his childhood sweetheart. 20 years after being ridiculed by his classmates when telling them he'd marry his friend Laura one day, he was now going to ask her for real. 2 months before the proposal day, he bought an engagement ring and asked Laura's dad for his blessing. Come May 23, 2015, and he was ready. He took Laura for a picnic date back to the place where it all began, their preschool. Like most men about to propose, Matt was terribly anxious. He was not even able to suppress his emotions, as Grodsky later reported. The whole car ride to the preschool, she kept asking me why I seemed anxious. Despite knowing rings can't walk away, he continued to check his pocket to make sure the ring was still there. When they arrived at the preschool, he took Laura to the grass for their picnic date and texted his brother. Matt's brother was in on the action. He headed to the school before the couple's arrival and positioned himself in the best location to capture a picture of the moment. He received the go-ahead from Matt and watched as he dropped to one knee, taking pictures simultaneously. After popping the question with a short pitch, Laura replied with a yes. Grodsky's brother brought out a picnic basket, the very same one that Grodsky's dad used when he proposed to his mom, full of bridal magazines and sparkling cider. Little Matt Grodsky was only 3 years old when he stood in front of his entire preschool class and told his classmates that one day he would marry his friend Laura Sheil. On December 30th, 2016, 20 years later, the preschool sweetheart said, "I do." Grodsky's uncle officiated the marriage and mentioned, "For most kids in preschool, it's about finding your snacks and your sleeping mats. But for them, it was about finding their soulmates." This story really shows that, for some, dreams really do come true.